So we're going to solve each equation by inspection. We're just going to solve it. Okay, so we need to go over solving. Okay, right now I have an x squared equals 169. Okay, does anyone know how to undo a squared variable or squared something? Square root, right? Okay, we need to know that. So let's write that down. The inverse of squaring is square rooting. They are inverse operations of each other. Just like the inverse of adding is subtracting, the inverse of multiplying is dividing. Okay. So when we're solving an equation, it's all about finding the inverse, doing the inverse operation to solve, or the opposite operation. So in this one, I have my x by itself, which is what I want. Okay, but I need to undo the square. I need to get rid of the square. So to do that, I square sides. Okay, what's the square root of x squared? X. The square and the square root cancel each other out because they undo each other. And what's the square root of 169? 13. Okay, so let's think about this. 13 times 13 equals 169, right? Is there another number times itself that'll give me 169? How about negative 13 times negative 13? A negative times a negative will make that a positive 169. Now, do I know which one of those was my x value? No, so you're going to get two answers. So x equals 13 and negative 13. Okay. Okay, when you square root a number, you should have a positive value and a negative value of it because you don't know which number you used. Okay. Okay, when you square root to solve, you need a positive and a negative value. Yes? When it's already squared and it's a negative? Not quite sure what you're asking. So the next one? Or, okay, we'll go over that one in just a second. Everyone done writing this down? Okay. In this case, now we have x squared equals negative 16. So just like the x squared's by itself, so to undo the square, I have to square root both sides. Okay, the square root of x squared is x. What is the square root of negative 16? Is 4 times 4 negative 16? No. No. Okay. 4 times 4 does not equal negative 16. Negative 4 times negative 4 does not equal negative 16. You would have to have a positive 4 and a negative 4 to get negative 16, but then that's not a perfect square, right? And that's not what square rooting is. It's not a number times its opposite. It's the number times itself, okay? Since there's no number that I know times itself that gives me negative 16, okay? Yes? No, it's square rooting, not squaring, okay? We call this no real solutions. That real is very important. Okay, there is another number, an imaginary number, that is an answer to this problem. But right now you don't know imaginary numbers, you only know real numbers. So there isn't a real number that works in this situation. Okay, any questions over that? Okay, now we're going to solve these equations. Okay, and get an exact answer. We're not going to state what two integers the solution is between. Okay, when we solve things, what's the first thing I need to do? Can't square root first. And you get that x squared by itself, right? Okay, the first thing I should do is divide by 5. That gives me x squared equals 25. Now the x squared is by itself, so I can square root both sides. What is the square root of 25? Very good. 5 and negative 5. Any questions over that? Okay, next one. Now I have negative 1/2 times x squared equals negative 36. Okay, I want to get that x squared by itself. How do I get rid of the 1/2? Okay, what's the same as dividing by negative 1/2? Yes. Not multiplying by positive 1/2. Multiplying by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 1/2 is 2. Okay. Or again, fractions just mean division. You're multiplying by the number on top and dividing by the number on the bottom. So the opposite of dividing by 2 in this case, it'd be to multiply both sides by negative 2. Since the 1/2 is negative, you're going to multiply by the negative. So what's half of 2? 1. So it just gives me x squared, and a negative times a negative makes that a positive x squared. And then negative 36 times negative 2 is a positive 72. Any questions over that? Now square root. That's going to give me x equals. Okay, I have to simplify this. So we want a perfect square that goes into 72. It should be fairly easy because I just multiplied 2 things to get to it. Is 36 a perfect square? Yes. So we have the square root of 36 times the square root of 2. 36 is a perfect square, so I'm good. Can 2 be broken down any further? No. Okay, so we just take x equals, the square root of 36 is 6. The square root of 2 is 2, square root 2. And we still need a positive and a negative. Any questions over that? We're good? Okay. Next one. Yassine, what should I do first to solve this equation? Before I should do that. Plus 19 to both sides. That gives me negative 5x squared equals 4 plus 9 is 3, 163. Then I divide by negative 5, divide by negative 5, and I get the x squared equals negative 163 divided by 5. I square root both sides. What's my problem here? It's negative. I can't have a negative inside the radical. I can't take the square root of a negative number, no matter how odd it is. I don't know what 163 divided by 5 is, but I know it's negative. So there's no real roots or no real solutions. Any questions over that? Okay, you guys do B. Okay, that did not give me the Z, right? That's asking me to find this length here. Okay, I have found the length of the two sides. So in order to find this length here, I have to do the Pythagorean theorem again. Okay. Only this time, since the guide wire is 200 feet, they're talking about the midpoint here. What does the midpoint mean? Yeah? Middle. Okay, cuts it in half. Okay, yes. You want what? Yes, so we want this 200 divided by 2. So this piece is 100 and this piece is 100. Does that make sense? So I'm now dealing with this triangle. This is the Z. This is the 100. Sorry. And this is the square root of 20,000. Does that make sense? We are now going to do our second part of this, which is do the Pythagorean theorem again. This time the A squared is going to equal to Z. The B squared is the 100 squared. You can go down into the habits of mind, okay? And it's going to equal the hypotenuse squared, which is the square root of 20,000 squared. Any questions over that? Okay, now do the math. Z squared, I don't know. 100 squared is 1 with 4 zeros after it. So 10,000 equals. When I square a square root, it just comes outside of the radical. Any questions over that? So now I'm going to subtract this from both sides. That gives me z squared equals 10,000. Can you go? Okay. Okay, then we square root both sides. And z equals, the square root of 10,000 is 100. Okay, why don't I need two answers here? 100 and negative 100. Very good, because we're measuring something, right? I'm asked for a length. Does it make sense if I say, oh, that length is negative 100 feet? Okay, so in this case, because we're solving for a specific real life scenario, we don't need a negative and a positive because it fits, it's outside the domain. 100 is outside of what that could possibly be. So negative numbers are not needed here. So the z equals 100 feet. Any questions over that? We're good? Okay, so I want you guys to go to this page. I want you to do number 9. And number 10. And number 14 and number 15.